Man woke up with a start. He found himself in a prison, and this prison is very special. Each prisoner's room is made of bulletproof glass, and the cells are in mid-air. It's monitored by 360-degree cameras, in order to prevent prisoners from communicating with the guards. Each guard wears a mask. At this point, Jack realized there was no way he could get the prisoner out of here, so he wanted to give up on the deal. But when he gave the code word for the exfil, Warden Mike, on the other hand, said he didn't know any code words, and that's when Jack realized that someone was trying to kill him. After a few days of observation, Jack didn't find any flaws in the prison, but there was one place he hadn't been, and that was the holding cell. Just when he didn't know how to enter the lockup, Jace suddenly came forward to say hello to Jack. He seemed to know that Jack was not a normal person. He offered to help him escape. The two men started fighting, and then they were put in the brig. It's a 24-hour-a-day place with a bright light. Over time, the people inside would quickly become dehydrated, and Jack found a break in there. When they were released, Jack told Jace he'd found something, but he needed a piece of metal. Jace said he'd find it for him. Then he managed to meet the warden in the interrogation room. Instead, he yelled at Mike. Mike ordered his men to keep Jace hydrated. Jace almost lost his life in the ordeal, but in the confusion, he managed to get the lid to the sewer. Jace then gave it to Jack. Jack reveals to Jace that he's the master jailbreaker. He also told Jace what he had observed. He realized that the structure of this prison is up and down, so it was probably built underground. So there must be ventilation ducts going up, and the floor in the cell is empty. That's where the ventilation ducts must have been installed. If we can get rid of the fixing bolts on the floor, we can definitely escape from here. But to prove it, I'd need to go back into the cell. So Jace and the other inmates got into a fight, and Jack hit a loaf of bread. Soon they were back in the brig. Under a bright light, Jack wrapped his shirt around a piece of metal and aimed it at the bolt. After a few minutes of exposure, the bolt popped out under thermal expansion. Jack then removed all the bolts in the same way. Then he tapped the ground to send a signal to Jace. When he received the signal, Jace immediately shouted. His yells attracted Mike's attention, and Jack took the opportunity to block the surveillance with a chewed-up loaf of bread. He then opened the lid to the space below the cell. Then he climbed up the shaft, but when he opened the lid to the outside, he froze. Follow me for part 2.